I'd like to talk about these diagrams that you see in your notes if you're in my MTA Windows Operating System Fundamentals class. If you're not, if you're just a YouTube viewer and you happen upon this, well, these are some diagrams that are in my MTA Windows Operating System Fundamentals class. I guess that was redundant, wasn't it? Okay, here are the diagrams. In this first diagram, I've got a router. Now, a router is typically what makes a network. As a matter of fact, every connection on a router is a different network. So, in this case, I've got from my ISP, from the internet out here, I've got a router at my house, for example, or in a business. Now, in this case, on this router, I've attached a hub, and now I've attached several PCs, printers, servers, and whatnot to this hub. In this case, anytime any of these devices over here, PC1, let's say PC1 wants to talk to PC2, when it talks to PC2, all of these will hear it. The server will hear it, PC0 will hear it. Because it's all on one side of the router, we say it's all in one broadcast domain. But here we say it's also one collision domain, because since everybody can hear every conversation, if two PCs talk at the same time, there's going to be a collision. So you cannot have PCs all talking at the same time over here. One broadcast domain, that is to say, if somebody broadcasts, then everybody here will hear it. And one collision domain, because when one broadcasts, it'll create a collision. If somebody else, or excuse me, when one sends a message, it will make a collision if somebody else sends a message at the same time. Now here I've replaced the hub with the switch. The switch still creates one broadcast domain. If one of these devices makes a broadcast, then everybody will hear it. But a switch makes multiple collision domains. Every one of these PCs is on its own collision domain. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 collision domains off of this switch. And another collision domain over here if you want to look at it that way, but that's also a broadcast domain. So in this case, only if a device, let's say PC0 wants to talk to PC1, those are the only two that'll hear that conversation, because this switch will filter it out to everybody else and only allow that conversation between those two devices. Meantime, this server and this PC2 could be talking at the exact same time without bothering anybody. So these are all in their own collision domain. Down here I've got two switches. Here's my router, and I've got a switch here and a switch here. Now I've got two different networks going on, plus this network over here. Remember, each of these connections off of a router creates a different network. So in this case, I've got a broadcast domain here. I've got a broadcast domain here. And if you really want to add this to it, I've got a broadcast domain here. But as far as collision domains, remember on a switch, each of these connections makes its own collision domain. If I were to count collision domains here, I'd say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then one over here to make 11, so 11 collision domains. That is, any of these PCs can talk to any of these others without creating any collisions. Now, if PC4 here wants to talk to PC1, then it could come down, there would be no collisions here, and then between the router and the switch there's no collisions and no collisions here. So you can see that this conversation could take place with no collisions, because each of these lines is on its own collision domain. Let's talk about wireless here. Here I have a wireless access point. I've got the same diagram that I had back here, but this time I've added a wireless access point to this switch. A wireless access point does not create a new network. All it does is just allows a connection, a wireless connection, to a wired domain. So it's just another branch off of this switch. However, a wireless router does create its own network. And so in the case of a wireless router, it's acting like a router and like a wireless access point together. And in a way you could say it also acts like a hub, because since these are all just receiving broadcast, they can all hear what's going on in this case. There could be cases where one is far away and it can't hear another one, and so there are some special protocols that it has to go through this router here, this wireless router, in order to be able to talk to each other, but that's a special case that we're not going to get into right now.